Welcome to the Fantasy Football Clown Show. I'm your host, Ed Smith. Today we're going to take a look at an orphan team I took over called the Sweet 16 Dynasty team. And I took this orphan over before the 2021 draft. It is a 16 team league, so very deep. It is 1 point PPR, 1.5 point PPR for the tight end, and then -3 points for an interception. This team, when I took it over, just a little bit of background. I took it over. There was no first round rookie picks or second round rookie picks in 21 or 22. Now, the saving grace is they gave me a free year, 21 and 22. So the first year I have to pay for is the first year that there is a first round draft pick in 2023. Now, the bad news is I couldn't even figure out when this league started in 2020 who the first round pick was, and I went over and looked at the team that I had, and there was nobody on the roster from the first 4 rounds of the vet startup draft. So fifth round and beyond was where the team really began, and that was because there was like some trades for guys like Cam Newton and Teddy Bridgewater and that sort of thing. And remember, it's a 2 quarterback league or a 1 superflex league, 1 quarterback league, 16 teams, so 32 quarterbacks start. There's only 32 quarterbacks in the NFL. Bye weeks have us 28 or even 26 on that 1 week where we have that 6 bye week. So it's really a struggle. I started this team, I think, with like I mentioned, Teddy Bridgewater and Cam Newton as my quarterback. So it did have two, but it had David Montgomery and it had Deontay Johnson. So, and it had Chris Godwin. Now, in fairness, just to talk a little bit about it, I had no draft capital at all coming up, and I was like, okay. Even though Godwin and Deontay were cheap, right, or were young, and Montgomery was young, I thought this team cannot win until 2024, 2025, somewhere like that. And what will they be, and what will their values be, and what's going to happen to Big Ben, and all those things were kind of factoring in my mind. What's going to happen to Tom Brady by the time that all happens? And so that all factored in. Now, looking back, in a 16 team league, I may have sold some of that stuff too cheap. I also may have made some moves that were kind of ill advisable, but I'll let you guys judge it. So, some more things about the starters here. We have 1 quarterback, 1 superflex, 2 running back, 2 receiver, 1 tight end, 3 flex for the 10 starters. So 2 receiver, 2 running back kind of values the running back more than the receiver. So receivers do fade a little bit because you only do start 32, but you start 32 quarterbacks, 32 receivers. So you can tell the difference from a quarterback to a receiver at that point. 15 bench, 10 taxi, 10 IR. So what that means, though, is you can have 35 guys on your bench and your taxi and your IR. So you really need to have stash and hope guys that maybe turn into stuff. And so how I built this thing was around, thinking, okay, so with 10 starters, the 10 taxi, the 10 IR, the 15 bench, I wanted to keep that as full as I could. Now, you can't always control your injured reserve, but that could be 45 players times 16. I felt like if I could get that deep into the league, I could find the stashes that I could pick in the third round and turn them into first round. So what I did was I traded Deontay and my 3 assets that I really looked at and had, and I couldn't get firsts for them. I did get Ryan Fitzpatrick, which in hindsight was a dumb trade. I picked him up somewhere, but I guess I felt like I wanted to start him once I moved on from, well, Cam lost his job and I basically didn't have him at all, so I'm down to 1 quarterback, and I guess I thought I wanted to at least have Teddy and Ryan Fitzpatrick, and at that point I wasn't even sure if Teddy was going to start because Drew Lock was still a thing. So I guess I felt like I needed to put somebody there because I tried to officially just tank. And the fact is, I wasn't going to get the first round pick, so tanking was just kind of egg on the face. I was going to help somebody else get better, and so I kind of wanted to take some swings and get as many wins as I could just to make that other guy's first round pick worse, if you know what I mean. So I I actually came in 15th place in this league, so I actually didn't. I don't believe I lost the whole thing, which is kind of crazy actually, because you should lose when you suck this bad. But um, we'll now this year I wouldn't mind actually losing, but we'll see how the team is. And later in the year, though, I was able to get somebody at a point where they just needed a quarterback, and I was able to sell Teddy Bridgewater for two first round picks in the coming up. Now, remember, I didn't want a 2022 pick because I just didn't think I could win, and I didn't want a good player that help me win and get a worse draft pick in 2023. So I kind of set myself up for two firsts in 2023 and two firsts in 2024, and I'm going to kind of build to that point. Now, last year I did have 3 second round picks with all these things I was accumulating. I accumulated, I think it was 19 draft picks. So I figured, there's 45 spots. I'm going to fill this thing up with young guys, and so as we look through the 4 positions that I have to try to fill 45 guys across a 16-team league, we'll start with quarterbacks, and you'll see a theme here on how young they are and where they are, who they are and what they are. So I have Davis Mills, Kyle Trask, Brandon Allen, Wolford, Huntley, Mond, Ellinger. And then at the running backs, we have Naheem Hines, Khalil Herbert, Salman Ahmed, Jarrett Patterson, Deion Jackson, Funk, and Sargent. Receiver, Gabe Davis, Quez Watkins, Brian Edwards, Van Jefferson, Laquan Treadwell, Wesley, Mims, Preston Williams, and then at tight end, Jacob Harris, Noah Gray, and Kyle Granson. Let's go back to the quarterback room. So last year in the second round, I had 3 in a row. It was middle of the second round, 2, 11, 12, and 13. And after 16 picks, so we're in the late 20s in the draft picks, I just bang out Mills, Trask, and Mond. Now, Mills became something, but I didn't have to be that right if you think about it. I just banged out 3 quarterbacks and figured maybe one of them would become a starter, which Mills is. So Mills is now my starter. It allowed me to move on from Bridgewater, still have a quarterback, and still feel like I could field a team. And the reason I had Brandon Allen and Wolford, they were the backup quarterbacks in the Super Bowl, so it made sense for me to hang on to those guys as their handcuffs in case something happened in the Super Bowl and carry that throughout the course of the offseason there. And then Ellinger, even though he maybe isn't a stud, he has the chance to maybe start some games. And I really feel like, just looking at the Carson Wentz trade, they think a lot more of Ellinger than they did of Eason, who never was promoted beyond the third team or third string, where Ellinger was the second string at least for some of last year, and then they have yet to make a move. Maybe by the time this video comes out, they'll have made their move at quarterback, and I really think the Colts will make a move at quarterback, but they must feel comfortable with him being a spot starter enough that with his youth, and I can stash him on a taxi squad, that it makes sense for me to hold him. And then Tyler Huntley, I really was impressed with him for Baltimore as the backup there. And let's just face it, like having the backup in Baltimore, if something were to happen to or running Lamar Jackson, isn't the worst thing in the world. If we're just trying to use these as trade bait for people that need some of that 32 quarterback situation. Looking at the running backs, now while Naheem Hines is kind of the third down passing back to Jonathan Taylor, and isn't really the handcuff, he's young, and he was drafted with high draft capital, and Frank Wright likes to use about 800,000 people, and so just having him as my running back as I'm trying to not win, especially this year, it makes a lot of sense. And then if somebody, if he gets a role that's bigger than what we think, then he'll have value. Same with Khalil Herbert. He's the handcuff in Chicago, but maybe a new coaching staff views him differently. And then you guys know that watch me that I like Patterson and Deion Jackson, who is the handcuff for Jonathan Taylor, and then Funk and Sargent. And then Salman Ahmed is just another running back that I had. He was a spot starter for me last year when he had those couple weeks. So that's what the running back room is, and when I'm ready to win, we'll draft running backs. But right now, there's such a short life on running backs that just having those guys there and see what they become, and then trade them when they become something, or hold them and use them as starters if they don't bring back the value that I'm looking for. In the wide receiver room, we're a lot higher on Gabe Davis than we once were. He came back in addition to a whole bunch of draft picks in the Deontay Johnson deal. So while that deal wasn't great, getting like a boatload of seconds, and I think I got like 8 draft picks, plus, seconds, thirds, fourths for Deontay Johnson and Gabe Davis and Quez Watkins. Like I'm just getting young guys that maybe could be something someday kind of guys, and it was all based on age is what I wanted to get back is, guys that I thought might be the poor man's version of Deontay Johnson with possibility, but maybe not, but then I have a whole bunch of dart throws as well. So if Deontay Johnson turns into Davis Mills, quarterback that we don't know yet, and Gabe Davis and Quez Watkins, then it becomes something because maybe I flop out Davis Mills for a first round pick or two, and now all of a sudden Deontay Johnson brought back 2 first round picks and just more than I ever could have gotten by holding it, and I'm using them in the process. So that's really what I'm doing is twirling this thing around a little bit. And so then as we look at Brian Edwards, he hasn't become anything, but we just kind of have him waiting. And Van Jefferson, the same idea. He didn't step up when he had the opportunity, but his dad was a player, and so you never know. Treadwell was a high-end draft pick back in the day, and we'll see. And Mims was, well thought of, but has fallen on hard times with his coaching staff. So a lot of hit or miss guys. Not really that excited with any of the guys outside of Gabe Davis, really. But you throw enough darts, you're going to get a Gabe Davis out of the deal. And remember, we only start 2, so I only need Gabe Davis to take another step forward and then find one somewhere with this whole conglomerate to trade out and get a good one. Tight end, all of them are very young. Noah Gray, Granson, Harris. And remember, we're only trying to win 24, 25, so we're still really 2 years out before we can really win. 3 years out before we can really win. 4 years out before we can really win. We don't know what these guys are, but if they become something in a 16-team league, then we can trade them for more future draft pick. And really the goal is to gather as much draft capital as we can with the dart throws we have and just keep upgrading the draft capital every year and just kind of sell for more higher end draft capital. So this year we actually have the 22nd, 25th, and 32nd pick in the draft in the second round, and then where we hit it hard is the third round of this pick. So top 48 picks, if you will. 33, 38, 41, 43, 44, 46, 47. So there's 7 of them in the third round. And then we have 49, 57, 60, 62, and then we have 65, 76, 78. Now, honestly, we're going to have guys that don't make any sense. I mean, I'm looking at the 5th round last year. It was guys like Funk and Jacob Harris, were taken in that round. Now they do put veterans in here, so I saw guys like Armstead and Preston Williams going as well. In the 4th round, though, guys like Tommy Tremble, were going, and Granson was going, and Khalil Herbert, Deion Jackson, there's guys like that. But in the 3rd round was where I had the 7 picks. There was actually players. There was Eli Mitchell, Jordan Palmer there. So there was actually guys. Jarrett Patterson, he put up some time. Taylor Heineke went in that round as well. I didn't realize at that time that veterans could go, but when you start to look at what is out there in those rounds that you could actually take, it does bring a little bit of semblance to that you can actually get some decent players, out of those rounds. And I'm looking at the 2-6, so that was Amon-Ra St. Brown that went with my first pick, last year if I would take that. And then 3 picks later, Chuba Hubbard, there, and then the 32nd, we can look and see what that was. But you get the idea that there's players in these rounds that I can actually begin to mold into something, even if I just take what last year's version of. And I feel like this year might not be as top heavy as last year, but I think it's as deep as last year. So I think we'll actually get some useful pieces, and we'll keep selling them forward, keep churning away, and really have a longer range because I start paying in 2023 for this team. So in my mind, if I win in 2025, then I'm still in my time horizon of winning in year 3. I've just got to manage the team a little bit quicker. Now, to be honest with you, I want to keep getting better every year. So if I finish in 15th place this year, I'd like to finish a little bit better this coming year, even though it would hurt the draft pick, so to speak. But we're just going to keep getting better and getting better, and each year, and try to make some progressional progress. Because once you get worse, you really feel like, wow, you're not doing better. Now, there is one caveat to that. If I were to get the right price for Davis Mills and have no quarterback and get worse, I'd be okay with that. But if I get worse and I keep the team as assembled and have reasonable starters there that I'm building with, then I'd be frustrated if I got worse. So it can go either way. I mean, I'm not opposed to ripping it apart if I get value in picks, back. But if I don't get the picks, then it doesn't make any sense for me to do worse, and I'll just rely on the fact that the 1-5 or 1-4, even though it's not the 1-1, it's okay. Like, I'm okay with that because I at least am beginning to get better and getting closer to that 8 spot where the playoffs begin. And so that's what I kind of want to keep seeing is some growth and keep making sure that the blueprint is working the way it should. So with that being said, that's this team. I always say it's the worst team I've ever seen, but it's a challenge for me. I do enjoy it. Love for you guys to hit the like button. Love for you guys to give me your comments on it. Maybe you'll tell me it's not as bad as I think. I'm sure you will. It's bad. It's a bad team. It's I've made mistakes with it. I mean, no doubt in my mind, I've made some trading mistakes. I've probably undervalued receivers in this league, and but I feel like I've come out okay, and I've made some trades that made sense for me, where I value the quarterbacks in this league. I value them high, so I'm going to hold on to them for dear life when I get them. So that's kind of what we're going for is to really go after those quarterbacks and get them to begin to compete at a high level, and then by the 2024 and 2025 season, be able to get some running backs to fill in, and at that point we'll already have the receivers and tight ends I'm sure that I need to compete and get to this thing to making some money, and so looking forward to that, and I think that you'll see the drop off of some of those other teams as well. So hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. If you have, thank you, I appreciate that, and look for you to hit that notification bell so that you see when these videos get dropped every morning at 7 a.m. East Coast time. And put those comments in the comments section. Always look forward to answering the questions or kind of rebutting what you guys tell me is wrong with what I'm doing. So I always like to, spitfire my ideas there as well. So thank you for joining the Fantasy Football Clown Show. I'm your host, Ed Smith.